Today I thought I would do something a little bit different and talk about some things that you might want to think about before you go and purchase a new camera. These are some things that I tend to think about at least this point going forward when I'm purchasing my cameras, and some of the things I wish I would have thought about before making purchases in the past. For those of you that have been longtime subscribers to my channel know that I've always used Canon products since the start. I started this channel with the Canon 70D, and I used that all the way up until about 2 years ago when I upgraded to the Canon M50, and now I have moved over to the Fujifilm systems, and I have the Fujifilm X-T3. And I want to guide you through about 5 different points as to why that I switched over to Fujifilm from Canon. Now just please note, this video isn't about leaving Canon and going to Fujifilm. In fact, this video is about no brand whatsoever. If you do kind of steer towards a certain brand for any specific reason, that's okay, but consider these 5 tips, and let's go ahead and get started with number 1. So I guess the first question you should ask yourself is, what is it that you enjoy shooting? Because if you enjoy shooting sports and a lot of fast action, maybe looking for a particular camera that has a higher FPS or ability to shoot more frames per second is a better option for you than one that does not. Another thing you might want to think about is if you tend to shoot at dark events or nighttime photography, is your camera going to be able to handle low light situations? You know, there's a lot of cameras out there that handle low light better than others, and of course our lenses, having faster lenses that can open up to a wider aperture, allow more light in, that's going to help, but there are proven that there's cameras that are better than others in low light situations. So maybe that's something you should think about too. What are you shooting, and what is most important to you to get out of the camera as far as spec-wise? So that's number 1. Number 2, and a huge thing on a lot of our lists, is what is in your budget? You know, part of the reason that I bought the Canon M50 over, say, the EOS RP or the EOS R or some other camera out there is because that was more budget friendly to me to upgrade. You know, I was able to sell my Canon 70D to have enough money to buy the Canon M50 with a kit lens and a brand new memory card. And that's essentially all that I got. I basically traded my old camera system for that one. I didn't really have the additional money to buy a more expensive camera, although I was looking at a few things at the time. I think was the Sony a6400 and a few others. But, you know, although I could have made that my budget if I would have waited a little bit longer, ultimately I don't think it would have held up to be what I wanted it to be. I don't think it would have been much more of an upgrade over the Canon M50. I might have had a little bit better of a photography experience. In fact, I know that I would have. But video-wise, I feel like I would have been pretty on par. You know, all those cameras and the video capabilities were pretty similar for the most part. But you got to factor in how much money do you have to spend. So tip number 3 is the ease of use. And, you know, you can get to learn any camera, and you can get to learn any camera well, but one of the reasons that I stuck for Canon for so long is, one, I love their menu system, and still to this day, I think the Canon menu system is one of the most superior ones out there. It's very easy to navigate. I like that it was color-coded, and, you know, I just knew where everything was. It was super easy to use. I've had my Fujifilm camera now for maybe about 6 months, and I still kind of struggle trying to get through these menus the way that it's all set up. So, you know, that's one con that I received over switching over. This Fujifilm isn't quite as easy to navigate through the menus. However, having buttons on the outside for my shutter speed, being able to control my aperture from my actual lenses, and also having that dial for ISO on the outside of the camera is phenomenal. Because on my Canon cameras, I'd actually have to, you know, preset a button to do those things or dive into the menus. You know, there were some adjustments to be made, but having those dedicated dials on my Fujifilm is definitely awesome, and that increases the ease of use. Another thing is, now when I want to switch out memory cards, not only do I have one spot, but I have 2 memory card spots, but those memory card spots are dedicated to their own little trap door on the side of the camera. They're no longer down in the bottom where the battery is. So now I don't have to actually take my camera off my tripod to swap out my memory cards. I can just open the door on the side, pop it out, pop it back in, and start going. So that's a few things to think about, is how easy are these cameras going to be able to use when you're in the field, especially if you're in a situation like a wedding where you're trying to capture that special moment and you don't want to miss it. You want to be sure your camera is going to be quick and easy to adjust the settings to be able to get those moments as things are changing, because you just never know. Tip number 4 that I put on the list is accessories and lenses. Again, I'm not dogging the Canon M50 at all, but one of the negatives to the Canon M50 was that the native lens line of the M series lenses was very limited. There was not a lot. I think there's only like maybe 7 or so. Now, there are a couple other brands that make some more, but not really to the depth that I'd really like to see. For example, if you buy a crop sensor Canon or Sony or anything else out there, there's a pretty big line of lenses for those. Same deal with the full frames. You know, Canon and Nikon both have extensive lines of lenses from over the years. Now, I know that you can buy adapters to put on your cameras to have interchangeable lenses and things, but I feel like that kind of takes away from the point of having a native lens, and it just increases your budget. That's one more thing you have to purchase, one more thing you have to travel with. So do they have plenty of accessories and things that are going to work with them? Think about third-party vendors as well. Do they have different things that are going to work well with your particular camera setup? One of the problems with my Zhiyun Crane Plus gimbal, and it's the same with my Fujifilm as well, is that it didn't work in the app with Canon cameras. But Sony and Panasonic, and I believe there was another one, that gimbal works perfectly. That comes with cables that plug straight in the camera, and you can do a lot of cool extra things that I could not do on my Canons or on my Fujifilm. So that's just something else to think about as well. And the last thing on the list is, what is the look and feel of the camera like? Does it make you happy? And is it going to make you want to shoot more? One of the reasons that I went with the Fujifilm, the X-T3, was because it resembles that of a body of an old film camera. And because I got my start in film photography, and that's where I really fell in love with photo and just the whole creating process, you know, it's nice to look at a camera that resembles that of a film camera. It really kind of brings that love and that passion that I originally found back to modern day, and it makes me want to get out and shoot again. It also makes people, you know, approach me and ask me, hey, what camera is that? Because not as many people are familiar with, you know, well, Fujifilm for one, but these particular body styles of cameras. When they see it, they think it's actually a film camera, and that brings up a lot of conversation, and it's great. It's really cool. And it just makes me happy. It makes me have fun, and it makes me want to shoot. And that's the most important thing, because if you spend all this money on this gear and you're not even using it, then is it really worth even having it in the first place? And going along those same guidelines of does it look cool and feel good, if this thing doesn't feel good in your hands and it's just uncomfortable to shoot, that's also not going to be any fun. And I thought that the smallness of the M50 was going to be great for me, not only for traveling, but, you know, stuffing this in my luggage, and especially carrying it out into the field if I'm hiking. That reduces a lot of weight and space that I need for my camera. But what I realized is that the camera being so small, it felt uncomfortable in my hands, and it just didn't feel right to me. I like the bigger body style cameras that really fit in my hands, because to me that's more comfortable and easier for me to shoot. Thus, I'm going to be shooting more often. But those are 5 things that I would think about before buying another camera, and maybe you should here in 2021. The one thing I want you to take away from this video is don't get locked into a brand. Don't go buy a Canon camera or a Nikon or a Fujifilm or a Panasonic or anything else just because of the name. Make sure you're buying it because you've really done your research and you know you're going to be happy with it. But I hope you learned a little something out of today's video. Let me know in the comment section below some cameras that you're looking at for this year and why you're considering them. But above all, be sure to create something new today.